Hi there, I hope you're well. Odessa here, womb wellness coach and doctorate of natural medicine. So for today's episode, I wanted to talk about the importance of womb wellness and its equivocation to lifelong self-care and generational healing. So womb wellness means lifelong self-care and generational healing. So let's get into it. Many women come to me for natural womb healing techniques because what they've tried isn't working. And what I've been able to create has worked for so many women. You may be here because you've spoken to your doctors, you may have spoken to your specialist, you may have had appointments and consultations with other therapists, and you still don't have the answers. And when I say other therapists, I mean, you've gone to see osteopaths, you may have seen physiotherapists, you may have seen massage therapists, you may have seen, acupuncturists, right? And you still don't have the answers. What I'm seeing is that most doctors are too medical. They're very scientific and therefore medicalized. And other therapists don't go too deep into the healing aspects that you might actually be looking for. You may not be able to articulate these needs, but you have that deep feeling as though there's more to it, but you can't seem to put your finger on it. And I'm not just doing this for others. This is not work that I created and I learned just for the sake of doing it for other people. But this is something that I've done on myself. This is work that I developed while I was, going through my own issues and suffering through my own silence for so long. Women, especially Black women, melanated women, melanin dominant women, need to have alternative methods for healing their wombs, right? This is what I've noticed. This is what I've seen to be true. This is what is being proliferated in the news. This is what we're seeing, on social media when we have the passing of another Black woman in the hospital who was mistreated. We as Black women have very specific traumas that we are living out here. Okay. We are some of the most lusted after, the most copied, and the most loathed and the most demeaned. And this is the truth. You can see this in the way, it's okay for Kim Kardashian to, wear these boxer braids and it becomes a style. But this is a style that we have been wearing in our hair for protective styling, just everyday wearing, and we are ostracized for it. We're told that we can't wear these styles to work. You can see this in the music of Justin Bieber. There's his song that came out, Sorry, na 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 sorry. And I remember, that's the song. If you ever have heard it or you have that, it's familiar to you. If you ever heard the interview of the woman who created the choreography for that dance, when they asked her what the inspiration for the dance was, her response was like, well, I just heard it. I heard his music and this is how I decided to move my body, when in fact, that's not the truth. Those dance moves are very, very specific to dance hall, to reggae music, to Jamaican women, and like I remember having this conversation with my children, and I said to my children, this video came on, and I said to them, I said, do you recognize these movements? And they're like, yeah, this is how you dance in the car on the way to bringing us to school. This is what we do. And so it's important for us to recognize that we are things that we do, we are trendsetters. Right? This is the truth. We are trendsetters, and our work is copied and validated by those who have copied it, who are not Black, but then demonized. We are demonized when we are, when we are the ones perpetuating our own creativity, right? And so this also translates to healthcare, and how we are viewed in healthcare. It's a well-known fact that, Black women are Black people, people with dominant melanin, are thought to have less or higher tolerance to pain. And so we are given lower levels of pain medication, or considered to be dope addicts, opioid addicts, if we ask for more pain medication, right? The thing is, we need a self-care, self-love program that helps us to get on track. We need a self-care and self-love program to get our legacies in order by cleaning up our unhealthy and sometimes trauma-induced habits, so we can invite more love into our lives by being who we are and not what we think we should be. Black women are over-sexualized. You know, the way that we view our bodies, the way that society views our bodies, you know, being very, gifted with having hips and waist and breasts and thighs, you know, it was considered, lascivious. You know what I mean? Like, this is what Black women are always doing. And all you got to do is dance a little bit and you're considered to be, out of order, and you're trying to be sexual, you know what I mean? And then you add in the fact that we were only seen as workhorses and, breeders of other slave babies. You know what I mean? And so, remember, if you don't know, on the plantations, you would have, white men who would come down for the weekend just for the sole purpose of sleeping with Black women. You had specific stalls, horse stalls, breeding stalls that were created, and women were placed in these stalls, and prized men from other plantations were brought to breed these women so they can have good slave babies, good slave laborers, you know what I mean? And let's not even talk about the separation of these women, from their babies. They really only looked at these babies as a means of money. So if you had a baby every year, you were getting paid per baby. If you were raising a family, or you were trying to raise a family, and you wanted to keep your family together and your husband or the father of your children together, this was almost impossible, because you may be sold, your children may be sold, your husband may be sold. There is so much trauma. Let's not talk about being a slave, a house slave versus a field slave, you know what I mean? And like, you're seen as a commodity, and so you have to give it up because this is where you're working. Like, there's so much that we are holding in our wombs. And it's a known fact through the study of epigenetics, through the study of genetics and how trauma is being passed down. I have yet to hear of, scientific studies that are done on melanin dominant people, but we have heard of studies that are done on, descendants of the Holocaust. We have heard of, science that has been done on animals, different mammals, you know what I mean? And so we know for a fact, through our ancestry, through natural medicine, through shamanism, that the body holds onto trauma and is perpetuated generation after generation. And so these trauma-induced habits that we have, many times, oftentimes, we don't even realize why we are responding the way we do. One thing I like to talk about is the excess curve in the lower back. And anatomy and physiology, if you're a physiotherapist, if you're a massage therapist, chiropractor, osteopath, and you study the body, this would be called a lordosis, a curve in the back, a hyperlordosis. I like to call it cock-body syndrome, right? This is where, Black women will stand up and they'll curve their hips back a little bit more, you know what I mean? And that's just naturally what we do. But energetically speaking, this is us pulling our pelvic away from alignment. Right? This is pulling our sexuality away from alignment from the body. This is a really interesting concept that I've begun to observe and watch in many different women. And we don't even realize what we do, the things that we do, the way that we speak to our children, the way that we regard our children, some of the habits that we have. Example, as Black people, we were not allowed to laugh on the plantations. We were not allowed to laugh on the plantations. And so when something was funny, we would run away and go laugh into a barrel, or laugh in a place where no one can see us, right? So when you see a group of melanated people together, melanin dominant people together, and they're laughing, you ever notice that they scatter, they run, they move, we're not able to just stand up. And, seeing this connection is quite interesting. If you notice another, trauma habit that we have in the churches, there's this particular dance that people do where it's like, your feet are very close to the ground and you might lift your feet a little bit, but not a lot. This was considered, dancing was considered devilry during the times of slavery. And so in these circle dances, that's what they were called, circle dances, when Africans or enslaved Black people, enslaved melanin dominant people were praising their God, in their sermons, their church sermons, they were told that if you lifted your feet off of the ground, it was considered dancing, and that is of the devil. And so here you have these, intricate foot movement dances that we're doing when we're filled with the Holy Spirit. You know what I mean? And no one knows where these habits are coming from, why the ushers wear white gloves on their hands. It's very, very deeply entrenched in the conditioning over the last 500 years. Our lives were very meaningful before slavery, but post-slavery, now in today's society, there is so much that is being bastardized, so much that, is affecting us, and it is affecting our lineages, because especially as women, we are perpetuating these things. We are holding these traumas and we are imprinting these traumas on our children in the womb, and the children are coming out and they are already trained in the different ways of responding to traumas around them. And we don't even know this. I've had clients confirm to me the stress that they themselves experienced during their pregnancy was so overwhelming. And when the child was born, the doctors thought the mother was a drug addict because the child was shaking so much. And this was based off of how the mother was responding when she was crying. So the child response, baby's response immediately out the womb was to mimic the mother who felt she had to be strong. This is so deep. So we need to invite more love into our lives by being who we are and not what we think we should be, based off of the conditioning that we've received from the past, from the present, and from culture, society, religion, and family around us. Hospitals are not safe spaces for everyone. Those who really want to use holistic medicine and want an in-depth, comprehensive approach will love this process, I can guarantee you. I hate to see women struggling to discover who to trust. I don't like to see women have to struggle with how to understand how to vet spiritual therapists, how to speak to doctors and take back your authority, struggling to navigate your own health problems and maintain equilibrium without synthetic pharmaceutical drugs, right? Struggling how to find your purpose, struggling how to boldly be yourself in spite of what everyone around you is saying or doing, right? This is tradition versus evolution. And evolution actually equates healing. So anytime we talk about healing, this is an evolutionary process because you are a different person. Remember, I talk about the spiral, and every time the spiral comes around, you have the opportunity to respond differently. This is evolution. So this training that I've created, this program that I've created, is very, very specific to women who are suffering with fibroids, PCOS, endometriosis, infertility, abnormal cycles, irregular cycles, any kind of womb health issue that you are experiencing, and you want to raise your standard of care. You want to be able to give yourself a level of self-care and womb healing that, you may not find visiting your naturopathic doctor, visiting your doctor, but really this blends and melts together so much of this work. Using my 3-phase womb cleanse protocol and integrating womb healing techniques, feminine energy, holistic medicine, You gain all of these tools and you begin to integrate them into your daily practice, right? Without the hassle of the DIY learning curve or multiple trainings, because we all know, right? Not everybody has it all together. Not everybody talks about everything. And this is where my passion really kicks in, because that was me. You know, you have to go to this person to have this conversation, this person to have this conversation. I began to see how they all actually meld together. And when they are together, the pastiche, the texture, the threading, you know what I mean? The seams are, you know, it lays such a strong foundation. So I want to share some of what has happened to my client who who's halfway through the program. Well, she's more than halfway through the program, but when she came into the program, she was suffering from polycystic ovarian syndrome, cystic ovaries. She was experiencing insomnia. She was experiencing very tender breasts. She had, you know, very extreme mood swings, lots of inner frustrations. She had very long and irregular cycles. She was experiencing acne, facial acne, and on the body, she was waking up tired. Within the first 90 days, because the program, the core program is 90 days, but you have access to me and the content for 6 months. So within the first 3 months, I mean, even before then, right? Like she was experiencing some of these transformations in the first couple of weeks, in the first couple of days. But within the first 3 months, she was sleeping full nights. She was waking up regularly with energy. She was experiencing shorter cycles, more regular cycles. She was noticing that the color of her menstrual blood was changing. She had no more brown blood. Brown blood is not normal. She had no more stiffness in her body or in her joints. Her acne cleared up. She was dreaming more and remembering her dreams. She was taking deeper breaths. These are her words, taking deeper breaths. And she was more aware and intentional when answering, not getting into arguments or responding when angry. She was giving herself more grace. Okay, so this client had a very, very deep womb awakening within herself as a dark-skinned woman as well. And this part here, I remember, you know, that session that we had, it was just so moving because she realized that she had spent a lot of time negating herself and negating her abilities because of this, the tone of her skin, right? After we started the womb phase portion of the program, right? So this is where we were transitioning from, you know, our clean eating and getting into our feminine flow and starting to integrate more of the direct womb healing portion. She had a breakthrough. And like she's turned on a badass light. You know, it was beautiful to see. And that is a power of this work that I'm so freaking passionate about. And I want this for you. And I know that you want it as well. I know you want it too. And so you've needed this healing. And if this is something that you really want to get started on, this is a part of your journey that you are prepared to embark upon, I want you to click on my bio so we can get started, because I'm ready to welcome you in. So with that being said, I hope to see you on my calendar so we can have more conversation about what it is that you need and how I can support you in that process. Be well and take care.